This week's question comes from someone who calls themselves the Nebu.
That's me. Hello, hi. I am the Nebu, and I would like to ask you, Mr. Chris Hansen. I've been watching on True Crime Daily how there have been a number of female predators being charged lately. There's been a big influx of female predators, and I heard you talking about it with a reporter on there.
We're so sweet. Where were you when I was in high school?
I was 8.
Right.
To nurture and teach children, later accused of taking advantage of their positions and sexually assaulting the kids. What's driving them to molest kids that they should be protecting? Thanks for joining me for Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. Female teachers accused of using their jobs to target their students who are just kids for sex. It's happening a lot these days, and some of these cases involve students as young as 12. In Texas, Jaden Charles, a pregnant mother of 4, was arrested in the past week, accused of having sex with multiple students. Police telling local TV stations they have video of Charles at a hotel with a student. Another Texas case. Margaret Claire Burris was charged last month with having an improper relationship with a student after police said they found inappropriate text messages on her phone. In Florida, Lauren King, a paraprofessional, was also charged recently with having sex with a 12-year-old student. I can remember back in the 90s when Mary Kay Letourneau was arrested and charged with raping her 12-year-old student Billy Falau. Letourneau served time in prison and even gave birth to 2 children fathered by Falau. They even later married. The case was shocking. People couldn't believe it. Now it seems like we're hearing about a female teacher being arrested every other week, somewhere around the country, for having sex with a student. With me to discuss what seems to be an epidemic of female teachers being arrested for sex crimes with students is Chris Hansen. He's an expert in this. He's the host of Takedown with Chris Hansen. He's also the co-founder of the True Blue Crime Network. Chris, I just can't get over the number of female teachers who've been arrested recently. We've covered at least 10 or 12 of them just in the last couple of months.
Literally every other day, a new lady teacher is getting outed. This video is for all of the people who watch these predator stings and wonder, how come women never get held accountable for this bullshit? Let me tell you, pendulum is swinging back in their direction.
The country. So what is going on as far as you can tell? Are we just not screening these people properly, or are we hiring people who are too young and too immature to handle these positions?
I don't think so.
I would almost buy into the age argument and the maturity argument, Anjanette, except for the fact that we've seen cases of offenders involving crimes like this who
old
are
ass women
in their 70s on
old
the most
ass
extreme
women
side. This has happened so much in the last 18 months that we at True Blue have actually commissioned a documentary looking at the
you know I'm gonna be on top of that
cause of this, trying to find out. And I don't pretend to have the answer to that question. We are delving into it. But I can tell you, based upon all the hundreds of predator investigations that we've done and continue to do at True Blue, you see trends. And what causes the trend? The offense typically has its roots in fantasy, many times in porn. And so if you're seeing...
I don't like... When Chris answered my question about this, he brought up porn. I haven't been like an active porn consumer in years, but correct me if I'm wrong, I don't see many... Well, actually, maybe I'm wrong. I guess the sexy teacher on the female side, that probably is a big fantasy category. Ugh.
Teacher-student fetish porn on one of the social media hubs or platforms.
Porn is just disgusting and evil, whether you're looking up fucking forced sex videos or you're looking up teacher-student fantasies. It's fucking insidious, obviously.
Providing this sort of material, you ultimately will see this play out in real life. And I think that may have some effect on what we're seeing now.
But honestly, I don't think that it has as much of an effect on this scenario as Chris thinks, because women are really not that active of porn consumers. And like if you just look at the pornography habits of women versus men, it doesn't seem to be as correlated to predatory behaviors, because women don't tend to watch extreme categories of porn. But I guess even just something as vanilla as a teacher-student fantasy, I just don't think that's I think that porn might be related, but I don't think that it's as related to the motives of the offender. It might have more to do with accepting an offer from a freaking teacher, like, but at the end of the day, I just don't buy it. But it'd be very interesting. I'd like to see a lot more research on that. The thing is, we can't do research on shit that we don't know about and that we don't know is like an issue. Like, only now these female predators are being they're getting popped off left and right. Now we can actually start to study them and compare them, because these are the types of female predators that were never, on the radar. Usually when you look at female predators, they are mothers or caretakers, not necessarily like public figures in the children's lives. Media that is like age restricted, but I feel like female predator propaganda or whatever is a lot more insidious, and you'll see it like not hidden away. You'll see that shit like in sitcoms, and you'll see that shit like boys and their humanity, and how we train them literally to be these like sex crazed robots without any humanity, because like we're training them from fucking childhood to ignore their own boundaries, bro. It's sickening.
The pornography aspect of this, it creates this fantasy, but also, I mean, this is illegal.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not.
Well, it is illegal.
This is not.
It is illegal. And the other thing that psychiatrists will tell you, Jeanette, is that for some of these people, they're acting out an experience that either reflects a very exciting point in their life, or they're trying to catch up with something they missed out on. Predators who talk to me after...
Yeah, it's like these women are like living out their like puppy love fantasies that they never got, probably because they were probably exploited sexually way too early. These young girls are often sexualized way too early. I was doing some research about it, this Arrested Development situation with the female predators, where it's like because their quote innocence was stolen from them, they are seeking, a controlled redo. It's just as horrible and controlling as when an older man is grooming a young girl, because she doesn't love the child as an equal partner. She loves the fact that he is beholden to her. No matter how hurtful he is, he will never be nearly as hurtful as an adult male. And any backlash she gives back to him, he's not going to be ready for. Like, I am a strong advocate against age gap relationships. I'll put it this way. Okay, people think, oh, well, no one bats an eye when an older man is with a younger girl. First of all, yes, we do. It doesn't make it any better for an older woman to be with a younger guy. Okay, when I was 25, I dated a 19-year-old dude. Yeah, he was legal. But let me tell you, he was not prepared for the emotional levels of psychosis that I was, like, putting out at that time, because I was really an unhealed person. Yeah, like, as much as he, like, fucked me over and cheated on me and yada yada yada, he was really a child compared to me at that time. And it's just creepy.
They're arrested. Well, and I don't know whether they're telling me the truth or not, but they will often tell me that they're preying on a girl who's 12, 13, 14, 15 because they felt they missed out when they were 12, 13, 14, 15, and other kids were having sex and they weren't. I don't know if I buy that,
exactly.
That's what they say.
No, that's a part of it,
and
for sure.
The other thing psychiatrists and therapists will tell you is that in the case of a female teacher who's exploiting a young male student, it will represent a happy, pleasureful, pleasant time in their lives, and they want to recreate that experience at the cost of exploiting a child. And so I think it all plays together. There's never a single point failure or single point cause in these situations. It's a combination of things that all come to a head. But absolutely, in above being anecdotal, I can tell you that we're seeing more of these cases than ever before. And I've been in this business for 42 years as a reporter, and 20 years investigating child predators. Literally 20 years ago this month, we did the very first investigation.
Damn.
And, I've come to learn
that was a few months ago
about these crimes. And so I think there's very definitely a link with porn and fetish porn involving teacher-student scenarios.
That is very interesting.
But I don't think that
almost sounds like there's
I don't think it's the link that he think it is. I think that there's definitely a link, but I don't think that it is the link that he thinks it is.
arrested development kind of thing going on here as well.
Well, I think that's part of it too. Yeah.
But you shouldn't be in these positions then. I mean, like,
Well,
exactly.
And so the question is,
Exactly.
are we doing enough to screen people?
No.
But if you go to the case in the Midwest that we explored on True Blue a couple months ago, you had literally a woman in her 70s at a private Christian school who was, sexually involved with at least one and maybe more students. Who suspects somebody of that?
Right.
You know, it doesn't meet the criminal math of what we normally see. So, you know, obviously we need screening. Obviously, school administrators need to be vigilant about who they hire and how quickly they hire, the background checks of those they hire. But, you know, a lot of these cases are slipping through it, and we're seeing more than ever before.
They do seem to be slipping through, and I wonder, are we becoming more aware of it? And I think back to when I was in high school, of course. And when I was in high school, I mean, the teachers, yeah, it's a couple of younger teachers, right? But all the teachers just seem like older. They seem like older than your parents, or at least your parents' age, at least. And it didn't ever seem like somebody, like, I mean, maybe I was just fortunate that we didn't have that going on in the places where I went to school. But it just didn't seem like we heard about it as much. I mean, is it because they're getting caught more these days as well? Because,
Yeah.
I think I think that's part of it.
That's-
I think it's cell phones. I think it's social media that fuels this from all standpoints. The internet, obviously, but I also think there's more awareness. So there's more opportunity for somebody to report it. There's more. I hope that all these stories we do on predators embolden survivors and victims to come forward and report this. So I think there's
Little
more there.
boys
I think,
too,
you know,
not
parents
just little girls.
do review their children's social media, and a lot of
Yeah.
these cases are uncovered because parents see something on a cell phone or a tablet, and you can also see odd behavior. You know, if the teacher is picking up your student, you know, from the house, and you know they're not going on a field trip, or at least not the kind of field trip you want them to go on, it raises suspicion. But all predators, predator teachers included, you know, prey on those who are vulnerable. So they will try to find kids who fit the scenario of somebody who may not tell or may be vulnerable for a number of different reasons. And that's what predators do. So that's why some of these cases go on for months, sometimes many months before they're reported and uncovered and investigated. But, you know, at least now, because of all the awareness
Right.
and all the investigations that, you know, we've done and so
Better late than never.
agencies across the country have done, you know, the justice system takes it seriously. It's not just swept under the rug. You know, these cases are prosecuted.
Anymore.
District attorneys across the country take it very seriously. Law enforcement takes it very seriously. And you know, some of these people are going to prison, and they're facing, you know, very, very strict enforcement here.
What do schools need to do to screen better for this? I mean, do you have any idea? I mean, do we need a more stringent interview process? Do we need like a psychological evaluation of these teachers before they're hired and these paraprofessionals?
Well, I think each state has a responsibility.
I think at the very baseline there needs to be some sort of like ethics training, you know, like basic guidelines of like what's appropriate and like what's not appropriate, because like some people like literally are oblivious to like basic
The
boundaries.
federal government has a responsibility to set a responsibility, and the federal government has a responsibility to set a baseline of a background check. So obviously there's a criminal background check.
So there's background checks for like public schools, but I used to work at a daycare that was it was like a half cafe, half daycare play space called, I'm not gonna tell you what it was called, but basically it like had a cafe where like the parents could hang out at while like their kids played in the playroom. I got a job there as a barista, but I was able to get a job at the daycare through that, and I didn't get a background check for that. There's no background check for like being a camp counselor there. Like, get real.
There should be some sort of interview that is conducted by a school administrator who is practiced in psychology and perhaps psychiatry to say, okay, you know, does this person seem fit? You know, there's no 100% guarantee on any of this. You know that. You've been in this business too long to know that you can't, you know, have a
People can slip
100%
through.
dome of safety. Yeah, people slip through, and that's unfortunate. But that's part of, you know, reality. But we can do the best we can to prevent that from happening, and it doesn't appear in some of these cases that's been done. You know, I sadly, you can't always assume that everybody's a good person. You know,
There's also understaffing. I work at an elementary school right now, and we're understaffed as it is. I'm pretty sure one of the reasons I was hired was because I was one of the only people who applied. There's understaffing happening, which is forcing, you know, even childcare positions to be given to whoever signs up as opposed to who's the most capable.
I think sometimes you have to assume that everybody has, you know, an element of badness to them or evil to them, and that's unfortunate. But when it comes to teachers and the safety of our students and our children, I think we need to take that extra step.
Yeah.
And talk to your kids every day. I mean,
Well, I think, look, this is right. This is my mantra. Because all this is going on, because the police can't be everywhere, the feds can't be everywhere, school administrators can't be everywhere. Your best defense on all of this is the relationship that you have with your children, especially in the early stages of children having access to the internet. The first conversation is, there are adults on the internet who like to trick children.
Yeah.
They will pretend to be children in order to trick you. If you don't know them in real life, you don't know them as friends on the internet. That's how it starts. And as kids mature and they have greater access to the internet, you need to ratchet up that conversation. But you also need to, talk about adults in their lives. And, we want to look up to our teachers and our principals and our coaches. But, if something happens, come to me. It's the same with sextortion. Some of these kids are afraid to tell their parents they made a mistake and sent a sexually explicit picture thinking it was a girl, and it was actually an extortionist from half a world away.
Don't ever yell at a kid for coming to you with information about shit like that, or anything that has to do with their safety. If anything, they should be encouraged, and you should thank them for coming to you. Obviously they need to take responsibility if it's something look, I stole your car, mom and dad, and I crashed it. Yeah, they should probably be punished for stealing the car, but they should definitely be acknowledged that they came to you with that information instead of trying to hide it. That's definitely the big thing. You gotta make sure that your kids don't get any negative reinforcement. That's what. Any negative feedback coming to you.
They're committing suicide over this, as opposed to saying,
It's true.
I messed up.
It's
And
true.
no parent would not understand that. And so they're especially when it comes to boys, 12, 13, 14, 15 years old, their brains aren't fully formed yet. They don't get all that's happening to them. And
They're
so,
impulsive.
we want to protect our girls, but we have to protect our young men too.
Yes.
And they have to know that they can come to you if there's a problem. And that is still, the best defense of your family, of your children.
And young boys need to know that when an older woman comes onto them and makes them uncomfortable, that's not something that they should be proud of. That's not something that they need to lean into. And young boys also need to be taught that they don't need to live up to any weird, strict standard of masculinity when it comes to this shit. Because on one hand, yeah, you have them being encouraged by their peers saying oh yeah, you should feel so lucky that this older woman is coming on to you. You also have the peers egging them on, saying yeah, you got to go for it, So it's just we just need to reinforce and emphasize to young boys that they are boys and they are children, and treat them accordingly.
Hansen, Chris Hansen.
Or the Naboo.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Antoinette. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
And that's it for this episode of Crime Fix.
Yada yada. So, for those of you who may or may not know, I actually work in childcare, and I used to work in childcare, but as I mentioned in some previous videos, I recently got a new job as a recess monitor and a lunchroom monitor at an elementary school. And a few years ago, I was actually a preschool teacher at a daycare facility during the pandemic. So I actually have a lot of experience working with kids closely one-on-one, and let me tell you, you really don't need anything except for a clean background check to get into these positions. I'll tell you a story. When I first got hired at that daycare facility, it was my first week. I was still training, and we were in the play area, and the woman who was training me stepped away for a minute, and one of the kids, 2-year-old, I don't remember his name, but he looked like if you shrunk down Ron from Jersey Shore into toddler form. That's what he looked like. In any case, he had shat his pants. Now, I have a little brother, but I had never changed his diaper before, and I'd never changed a diaper before, period. And I didn't get a background check for that position, and it occurred to me that someone was gonna have to change this kid's shitty pants. I guess it was gonna have to be me. Bubby. Yeah, Bubby's here, by the way. So the thing that made me so uncomfortable about the situation wasn't the fact that I had to change this kid's shitty pants, but the fact that, I could be anybody. Luckily, I'm not a fucking freak, but, it just goes to show you. And there is something to be said for female privilege in that situation, too, because although we did have 1 or 2 guys work at that place over the course of my time there, none of them were dealing one-on-one with the toddlers like that, or even really dealing one-on-one with the kids at all. So they just trusted that I wasn't a freak, and I'm not. Same thing for this new job that I have, even though it is at elementary school, and I did get a background check. I did get fingerprinted for this position, but that was it, you know. And there was no training. There is no training at this job. So, basically, they're like, just make sure the kids don't hit each other, I guess, is like basically what they told me. We're not really allowed to play with them because if we're playing with them, we can't watch them. But there was no, like, rundown of protocol of any kind, and none of the other monitors know how to work together. They all think that they know what's going on, but when it comes down to things actually happening, nobody fucking knows what's going on. Let me give you an example. There's this one neurodivergent kid who, and the age groups that I work with are 1st grade, 3rd grade, and 5th grade. So there's this 1st grader who always refuses to go in for lunch and always refuses to go in for recess, yada yada yada. What ends up happening is she's unattended. There's no fucking protocol. The kid doesn't have an IUP. The kid doesn't have a 504 plan. There is no plan in place, and we're just like, what the fuck ever. There was a situation where, like, we have to do, like, intruder drills, and we're all the different monitors have, like, a different timing mindset, or, like, a different map of where the kids are fucking supposed to go for these things, and nobody's on the fucking same page. When I try to make a complaint about it, or when I try to ask questions, all of the other monitors, who are these old-ass women who've been there longer than me, they get really defensive and huffy. So me, I'm just like, yo, I haven't worked in many years. The last, you know, shit that I was doing was managing restaurants. I was expecting this kind of, like, bullshit at a restaurant, or expecting this kind of bullshit, like, in a retail environment, but not, like, at a fucking elementary school. So, when I went to the principals, vice principal and principal, about it, they both literally said to me, what do you want us to do about it? So, where you think there would be the most basic of protocols, there's none, usually. And I even said to these principals, I was like, look, if all that was at stake was, you know, somebody waiting extra time for their burger, or somebody missing a pack of fries, or, you know, somebody's fucking food being burnt, I would not give a fuck. I would almost encourage it. Back to my toxic retail days. But what's at stake now are children's lives, and I really think that, like, it's just maddening how even when it comes to, like, day-to-day operations with childcare, where you think there would be protocol, there is none. And so obviously when it comes to predator identification, there's no protocol. And even when I'm dealing with these kids on a day-to-day basis, you know, I try to reinforce the boundary between me and these kids, okay? For example, they want to know all about me. They want to know what I do with my free time when I'm not monitoring their recess. I slipped up one day. I was, like, trying to name my hobbies. I was like, well, I make music. I make YouTube videos. All of a sudden the kid was like, oh my god, you make YouTube videos? What's your channel? And I was like, oh, rewind, that's not good. I said, well, I don't have a channel yet, but I make videos and I'm practicing. And when I do have a channel, I'll let you know. Some of the kids wanted to know where I lived, and I said, you don't need to know where I live, and I don't need to know where you live, you know? You only need to know, like, where you are, and if somebody's asking you where you live, you don't tell them unless they're, like, someone you know, like, trusted. You know, sometimes these kids will, like, look over the gate of the freaking playground, like, onto the street, and I'm telling them, hey, guys, get back into the playground. You don't need to be paying attention to what's going on up there, you know? Anytime a kid, you know, is hanging around me too much or talking too much to me, I try to redirect them, hey, you don't need to be talking to me, go play. And sometimes, you know, it's easy to get wrapped up in it, you know, like, some of these kids, you know, kids are just people. Some of them I like more than others. Some of them I like chatting with more than others. But that doesn't mean I need to be spending my time there chatting with them. They're there to play with other children. They come up to me, they say they don't have anyone to play with, and so they're talking to me. I go, hey, look, you gotta make some new friends, point blank. It's not me. I'm not the one. I'm an adult. I always make that boundary clear to them. There's even one time, you know, even the silliest things, like doing, you know, guess what, chicken butt joke. To me, I don't think that that's, like, an appropriate thing for, like, a school adult to say to, like, a kid in class, because it says the word butt, and a butt is a private area. However, I accidentally slipped, and I said, guess what, chicken butt, to this group of kids, and most of them, like, were like, oh my god, I know that joke, but one of them had this look on her face, like, and she, like, didn't get it, and I'm like, oh my god, she's probably feeling freaking weird as shit, because I said the word butt, because I know that when I was a kid, like, I feel like I may remember moments in my childhood where an adult said something harmless, but it just made me feel fucking weird, right? Because you're a fucking kid, alright? And never again will I ever say chicken butt, ever again. That's not an appropriate joke to be saying to kids, alright? Maybe I'll say chicken foot or something. But, you know, and it was okay, like, she'd never heard that joke before, first of all, and the other kids, you know, they, like, explained it to her, but at the end of the day, I should have known better not to say that fucking joke, alright? Even, like, when the kids do something silly, like, one time this kid was going out of bounds, and I was like, hey, where are you going? He turns, looks me in the eye, and says, your mom's house. I couldn't help but laugh. I fucking couldn't help but laugh. I said, inappropriate. Funny, but inappropriate. I was like, look, kid, just because it makes me laugh doesn't mean that it's, like, good. You know, just because it's funny doesn't mean it's appropriate. These are jokes that you should be saying to other children. You know what I'm saying? And there was no guideline. You know, there's, like, technically we're not allowed to touch the children. Nobody told me that. When I first started, that was just something that I just kind of, like, figured, like, we probably shouldn't be touching kids. But, like, the older women, you know, they like to touch the kids on the shoulder, you know, and give them hugs. Shit. Kids will come up to you and ask for hugs. I guess in that situation, what are you going to do? Reject them? No, you give them the hug. I see them hugging their teachers, you know, but it's just, like, it's a minefield. And there is no rule book. So, at the end of the day, as an adult working with kids or interacting with kids, I guess, number one, remember that you're not there to be their friend. You're there to keep them safe. Number two, you need to be modeling appropriate behavior, and you need to make clear the boundaries between you and the child as an adult and child. And number three, treat them like people, you know, like, make sure they're comfortable. If they look uncomfortable or weird or spaced out, stop what you're doing. And if you're able to, identify what happened, take it back, identify it, apologize, and let them know, like, hey, you're valid, bro. Like, I don't know, man. So when it comes to the case of female predators, society just assumes that women naturally have this boundary in their head. But no, it's something that is partially common sense, which we know is not really that common, but it's also something that, like, culturally needs to be expanded on. Because, as I ironically said before I got this job and I was working on those predator videos, it's like, who is seeing kids like that on a daily basis? People must be going out of their way to see kids on a regular basis. The reason and listen, just because an adult likes, you know, quote, kids things like cartoons or Barbie, for example, doesn't mean they're a freak, okay? Especially, like, us millennial generation, okay? Like, y'all didn't, older generations didn't have toys like this to collect back in the day. Are you kidding me? Like, this is ridiculous. What is that? What? Really? That was cool. Y'all saw that? Oh, in any case, that was weird. Point being, you can love kids, you can love working with kids, you can want kids to be a part of your life and not be a freak. You could also be the kind of person that actively seems like they hate kids and discourages anything childlike around them and be a fucking pedophile, okay? Anyone can be a pedophile. Men, women, non-binary. So we have to be their eyes for them. And I tell you what, I've got my eyes on all the pretty little teachers at my school, making sure they're not up to nothing weird. All of them. I don't know how long I'm going to stay at this place, because it is pretty bullshitty, but I do love working with these kids, and I want to be a good role model for their lives. Children are the future. Well, we got to keep them safe. And I guess part of keeping them safe is, you know, making sure that they understand what a boundary is.